Parapsychology Today, a program of investigation into the realms of the unknown. Suspend your mind for a moment and journey to a world beyond the five senses. Parapsychology Today is a program exploring ideas, theories, and concepts that have been around since ancient times. We'll journey to outer worlds and inner worlds. We'll look into such phenomena as past lives, UFOs, and hauntings. And we'll explore psychic ability as it relates to human potential. We do not intend to prove or persuade, but rather present theories and personal stories of ventures into the world of parapsychology. Whatever your beliefs, we hope this program will start you thinking about a reality beyond the five senses.
Hi folks, welcome to another edition of Parapsychology Today. I'm your host, Polimeni. Today we're going to talk about somatic breathing, and my guest is Gina Polimeni. Gina is a licensed professional counselor. Gina, thank you for being here with me today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we're going to talk about, first, before we get going, I always like to establish my guest's credentials. So please tell us a little bit about your background and your training.
Well, it's a pretty extensive background. Most of it is real life experience. A lot of the things I'm going to be talking about today are things that I've gone through myself. So I never ask my clients to do anything that I haven't done personally. But I went to school. I got my associates from Mount Hood Community College. And then I went to Portland Community College and I got my CADC, which is a certification in alcohol and drug counseling. So I did that. And then from there I've worked in the addiction field for years. And then I went to Marylhurst University, got my bachelor's degree from there in human studies. And I decided if I wanted to make any money as a therapist, I need to get my master's. So I ended up just going further and getting my master's at Lewis and Clark. So that's the educational piece. Like I said, a lot of it is personal experience, so I kind of brought together my personal experience with the educational experience that I had and my own work that I've done. And then around 2019, when I started to go through my own difficulties after I graduated with my master's, I started to get introduced to more energy work. I started to get more introduced to sound healing and plant medicines and the somatic breathwork and Reiki, just all different types of energy healing. All these mentors and people started coming into my life because I was seeking something more. And I initially started doing it for my own healing and for my own journey. And then from there, because it had made such a difference in my own life and it had helped me significantly heal through a lot of things, I decided it was very beneficial to start bringing this into my practice. So I really started to try to bring the scientific and the spirituality side together and bring in the energy work with the therapy and kind of create my own smorgasbord of healing, I guess you'd say.
You know, this is interesting because a lot of healers I've interviewed have had problems themselves, like health problems or other problems, and seeking help for themselves. They become counselors or professional healers themselves. Do you feel comfortable telling us about how you got into this? I mean, you said you had some dark night of the soul, haven't you?
Yes. Yes.
Just what you'd like to tell, and that's it.
Yeah, so I'm very open with my story. I've always been interested in people. I love people. I think they're very interesting. And my own experiences, I struggled a lot growing up. And as I learned, I kind of created my own belief system through the things I struggled with. And because of that, I wanted to understand why I was in so much pain. I wanted to understand why I struggled so much with relationships, romantic or friendships. I felt alone so much in my life, and I wanted to understand why I was so miserable, essentially. And through, I've been through, in my 20s, I went through a really dark time of feeling really alone, using drugs and alcohol for a period of time. And it was what I realized later on is I was suppressing so much of my emotion and so much of the pain I had been carrying for my younger years, that when I would use substances, it would help me express myself. I didn't realize that at the time. That was something later that came through. But as I moved through life, I started to do my own journey, and what I found is I wanted to understand myself more and more and more. And as you open a door, there's always another door. Or as you kind of fix something, there's always something on the other side that you're seeking out. And I think one of the biggest things for me was alcoholism. People were always telling me certain things about alcoholism, but something didn't click with it for me, so I kind of started investigating myself, more of what it could be, and that's kind of where my journey started. In 2019, after my master's, I had a dark night of the soul, as you said, and what that was I didn't want to do what I was doing anymore. It was kind of like an identity crisis. I thought I knew what I wanted in life, and everything felt as if it was coming crashing down on me, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I felt very lost and had an existential crisis as well, of knowing that there was more, but didn't understanding what that was either, which is where these other teachers came in. And I was, I've had moments in my life where there was self-harm. I've had moments in my life where things were super difficult, and I used substances to numb that out. I've been through difficult, alone periods of loneliness in my time. I'm not married, I don't have kids, so then working through, feeling feminine and wanting to maybe have a kid in my life, and recognizing that that might not be something that I can do, so really having to face that for myself. So these were all these very difficult times, and like I said, these mentors started to come into my life, and through that I started doing some really deep healing, because I had done a lot of healing, but I felt like I got stuck. It was almost like I hit this place of stuckness, and I needed to do further healing to get through this barrier that I felt like I kept hitting. I was like, I know a lot, but there's more, and I couldn't get myself there. And that's when I was introduced to plant medicine. Different plant medicines could be like psilocybin therapy, MDMA therapy, ayahuasca, DMT, that are now being used for therapy. So I did some plant medicine therapy, which really helped move me through that. Which changed my life. And then through meeting those people, I learned about somatic breathwork, which then was another area that really helped me with my emotional healing. And so through these dark times, they all led me to this path, to doing it myself. And then through practicing these things on myself, I was like, this is game changing. Like, all these things are game changing, that I want to start bringing these in to help other people, because it's brought so much freedom into my life and so much understanding of self. And when you understand yourself so deeply, it helps to understand and create more compassion and empathy and love and acceptance for those around you, which then creates more of a connected relationship with other people.
Boy, if I needed help, I'd come to you, because you've been through so much and you've learned so much. It's terrible that you had to go through all that, but in a way, it was a blessing, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Sometimes terrible things turn out to be blessings in disguise. Now you have, I read that you have an ideal client. Who's your ideal client?
First, I just want to say I do agree. I look at my life and everything happened the exact way it needed to happen for me to get to where I am and to be in my purpose, which is to help others move through pain, or knowing that there's more in their life, which this kind of ties into the ideal client, is a lot of people struggle with identity, or they hit a point in their life where their kids go to college, or they're stuck in their marriages, or they feel like they don't have purpose or meaning in their life, and they know that there's more. They just don't understand what's blocking them, or they have everything they'd have ever dreamed of having in their life, and they're still not happy. And so my ideal client is people who either have done some form of work, or that have been through a lot in their life, or have reached a place where there's a block and they don't understand why they can't move past that to get to the next place that they know they need to be. And I help identify what that block is, or those things that might be keeping them stuck, like trauma or suppressed emotions. Because even if we're not expressing suppressed emotions, we are giving off an energy into the world which can create how people respond to us. And so my ideal client is anybody who's feeling stuck in their life, knowing that there's more, and are wanting to seeking more understanding of self.
So you do more than talk therapy. You work with a person's body, mind, and spirit.
Correct.
And it's a bit different than traditional medicine, which is just works with the body. So This is because we're more than just physical beings, though, right? We're also energy beings. That has a lot to do with your work. So we're going to talk about one of the techniques you use called somatic breathwork. Now, I was doing some research, and soma is a Greek word meaning body, but you knew that. This type of work, how much is the mind involved and the body when you do somatic breathwork? Can you explain that?
So first, there's a book out there called The Body Keeps the Score. It's a great book.
The Body Keeps the Score?
The Body Keeps the Score.
Ooh,
I wish I could remember the author's name. It's like a 3-named author. But he talks about in that book how our bodies store energy. So that's a big piece, is that our bodies store energy, right? Because like you said, everything is energy. What was that? Can you repeat the end of that question specifically, what you asked me? I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, that's okay. From the research, I understand, okay, soma means body. This type of work, how much is the mind involved and how much is the body involved in this work?
So when we go through things in life, so let's say a trauma happens to us, a lot of times we think the mind is reacting, but actually the body reacts before the mind.
Can you give us an example of the trauma and maybe how the...
So if you're in a situation, let's say you get in a car accident, right? When that car hits, your body is reacting first. It's tightening up, right? It's trying to protect itself. Maybe it's, whiplash, your head's moving forward, your body's tightening up, you're experiencing pain, but because of the fear, you go into the mind. So a lot of times in trauma, it brings us out of our bodies if we're not used to moving through our body, which is why when you first get in an accident like that, you don't feel pain usually, right? There's panic, right? Your body's in survival. I'm panicked, I gotta fight, I gotta flight, I gotta get out of here, I gotta see if they're okay. I'm like in fear-based. That's that limbic system, that's the animal brain, that part of our brain. So your brain is going into this narrative of like trying to keep everybody safe. Well, at that point, you're being completely disconnected from your body, right? So that is like, that would be that first piece of your body's having its own trauma, but because we have this cognitive part of our brain, we go into fight or flight, narrative, what do I need to do? Like fixing everything, go, 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 go. So now we're in fight or flight. The thing is that we don't understand is like animals, so Peter Levine is another trauma expert, and he talks about how when animals go through trauma, they do similar things. They fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Really?
They do the same thing. There are videos online that you can see too. The difference between animals and the humans, majority of the time, is the animals allow themselves the space after the trauma before they go into just daily life of activating their parasympathetic nervous system.
They do that automatically, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when trauma happens, our central nervous system goes activated. We get in fight or flight. But then as humans, we continue to just move on with our lives. And we're like, what's the next thing? And where do I need to go? Or we don't allow our bodies to move through whatever pain it might be feeling, or the fear, or the pain, or the sadness that it's feeling. We go just into the next thing. Animals activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which allows them to rest, recharge. A lot of times they'll yawn or they'll shake their bodies. It's them resetting their system. They take a minute, reset their system, and then they go about their day.
Sounds like we can learn from the animals.
Well, that's the research of Peter Levine, is that's what he talks about, which is where, like, why somatic breath work, which is what we're going to get into, is so important, because part of that breath work is teaching us not only how to we activate the central nervous system, but after we go through something like that, how do we learn how to activate the parasympathetic nervous system?
So I was going to say, how does energy get stuck in the body? But you more or less said that, you have an accident and get stuck. Another example of how I might make it energy stuck in my body?
So one that I use a lot is when we're growing up as kids. Let's say we break something or we get in trouble, right? And let's say we start to have an emotional reaction. Well, a lot of us grew up in a time where it was like, don't cry, like everything's okay. And essentially that's like shutting our emotions down. Well, they talk about emotions as being energy. I look at emotions as energy. The only reason we label an emotion is because somebody has told us to label it as anger, as sadness, as hurt.
But it's an energy.
But it's an energy, right? So if you think about when you're a kid, and let's say you get really angry or your kid wants to throw a tantrum, right? It just looks like an energy being getting ready to pop, right? And so if your kid is like that, or if you were like that, so I'll use myself as an example. Let's say I'm a kid and I get in trouble, or I'm angry about something and I want to throw a tantrum, and my parent comes and they're like, stop. Like, don't cry, like crying is being weak, or they spank you, or there's something associated with that. My mind, everybody's mind's different, so people don't react the same way. You can have two kids in the same home and they both have a very completely different experience. So this is for each person individually. I just want to say that, because it doesn't, not everybody has this experience. So my parent comes and they spank me, let's say. I get scared, but I was just told not to cry or feel pain. So instead of, there's all this emotion that's coming up in my body, but it has nowhere to go. So the energy doesn't have a filter to move through.
Now, if you did cry, you'd be better off.
You'd be cry because you'd release the energy, but because there's no way, I'm being told not to do that, and I'm not conscious of this whole process that's happening, because I'm like 3, right? 3 or 4. So what happens is I think it's bad. So that energy gets stored in my body. Well, if you think of like a cylinder, right, or a pressure cooker, right? Pressure, it's building in the body, right? So it goes into our muscles, it goes into our organs, it goes into our cells, it can create mental health disorders, it can create chronic pain, just different levels. It's different for everybody. But what happens is, I move through life and I tell myself, don't cry, you're going to get in trouble. So now I'm creating a belief system. This is where the mind is. This is where I'm getting disconnected from the body now, because the body's saying, let me out, and I'm saying no. So I'm separating myself from body, going into my mind saying, I have to be strong. I can't have emotions. I can't feel, right? I'm bad if I do that. So now I'm creating shame. So I move through life. Well, if I have a small pressure cooker, let's say at 30, somebody triggers my emotion, it can't hold inside the pressure cooker anymore. I become reactive, I react, and create chaos, and then I'm like, why did I do that? Because there's a lack of understanding in that.
Yeah, and everybody's going, look at that brat. So how would somatic breathwork help? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, so the way I was taught, so I was taught by Stephen Jagger's Somatic Breathwork, amazing facilitator, he's incredible. I went through his program, and what it teaches you is how to activate the central nervous system. I'm activating a trauma response within somebody without having to use therapy, right? So we activate intensive breath work, activating the central nervous system, which creates a trauma response. If you're
how's the breath work? Can you show me?
Yeah, so our lungs are big. They're pointed down like this, and oftentimes we're not utilizing the full amount of breath as we should be, right? So somatic breath work is about breathing into this part of the lungs that we don't normally do, which is usually really tight for people. So it's breath work. So the first part is activating central nervous system, which is breathing, pushing the belly out. You're bringing a lot of oxygen in, so you're creating a lot of air, you're creating a lot of blood flow to the brain, you're kind of amping up, right? You're amping the body up, so you're trying to create a response. And so you do 3 points of that, and as you're doing that, a lot of times people will find that they start to have emotional reactions. Now the difference between this and other types, because there's other types of breath work, is after a certain amount of time, you breathe in and you hold the breath for as long as you can, which allows the body to kind of start to settle.
This is the somatic breath work.
Yes, this is the somatic, right? So that's the first half, is activating the central nervous system, breathing in the mouth, breathing out the mouth. Now, the activating the parasympathetic, so you do that, a lot of people have emotional reactions from that. Now, I just want to add really fast that there is a piece called tetany in there, and what tetany is...
Tetany?
Tetany. What tetany is if somebody is trying to control their emotions so much and is not allowing their body to fully have their full emotional movement or release, their body can tighten up and get painful because they don't want to release their emotions. So that's another way, is like if people are trying to breathe like that and then their hands start tightening up or their face starts to get tight, it's because you're not allowing the body to have its full emotional like fluidity and release. That shows you that it's stuck in your body and needs to move through. So you have to be very careful with this breath work because it can be very uncomfortable for people, and a lot of times people don't understand that they even do that.
So some of the things with energy get stuck is pain, mental problems. What other kind of problems do you have if energy gets stuck?
Mental problems, pain, emotional reactivity, isolation.
Isolation.
Projection. So a lot of like blaming other people for stuff because you're not understanding what's happening or why you're being triggered. So you can have a lot of like conflict or victim stance, or like I said, projection, blaming other people for things because you're not allowing yourself to move through the emotions. So
Jeez.
I just want to say real fast the activation of the parasympathetic though.
Now what's the parasympathetic?
Parasympathetic is that place where if you have a strong emotional reaction, we always want to go back to regulate. It's regulation of the nervous system. Like the animals, right?
Yes.
The animals shake their bodies. So you can shake. That one is nose. And you slow the breath down, and it's in the nose, out the mouth. So whenever I do emotional releases with my clients, like sometimes I have a anger therapy is what I call it, controlled anger therapy, and I have them do certain things during therapy to like release anger.
So you mean you have clients coming in with a lot of anger, they don't know what to...
Yeah. Or
is that scary for you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because what I have found is if you're uncomfortable with somebody's emotional expression, you need to work on that emotional expression yourself. Because if you're not, like I wasn't comfortable with anger for a really long time until I did somatic breath work, and I allowed myself to learn how to do it in a controlled way. So now I can hold space for angry people. I never used to be, it used to scare me being around people who were angry, right? Or overly emotional, I would take on their emotions.
Really?
Because I wasn't dealing with my own emotions, so they were evoking this pain within me, and then I was making it my own, right?
So much to this.
I know, there's so much. I could go on forever. I love this.
It's interesting.
I love this stuff.
No, this is good. Well, yeah, so you help a lot of people. Can you, without naming a person, can you describe somebody that came in and how you helped them? I mean, somebody.
Oh my gosh. I would say all my clients.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my clients that come in, they don't know how, they might cry, or they might say, I'm not an angry person at all. If somebody tells me that they're not an angry person at all, it tells me that they suppress their anger. Because anger is what I have learned. Anger is a human emotion, a natural human emotion.
You have to release it.
Exactly.
Shouldn't hold it in your body.
And so when people say that they're not angry at all, it just tells me that they're not comfortable with their anger. And as we move through and we do talk therapy and we talk about some of these things that have created anger in their lives, then what I do is I work through this emotional piece. So all my clients, I could tell you one specific one, but really all my clients come in and I teach them how to be okay with their emotions. And one of the first things I do during a couple of my first few sessions is I put some meditative music on and I have them sit and I have them breathe, not somatically, just deep belly breathing. I have them close their eyes and
Calms them down, right?
do a meditation. And when I do that, almost always I will get an emotional reaction, because people are so busy in their daily lives that when somebody just gives them a safe space to sit and be and allow them to be seen, it allows them to actually get safe enough within their body to just release. Because part of being able to emotionally release is you need to feel safe. And so you need to have a safe space to be able to release.
It's amazing. So we demonstrated the breath work. Do you want to add anything that we might have missed?
I mean, I could talk about this all day. Like,
I know, it's very interesting.
I think for the most part, I think we covered the basics of breathing. What I'll say to wrap that up specifically is, if you struggle with talk therapy, let's take men for example. I want to work with men so bad because men need to have emotions just as much as women do, and I think we come from a generation that a lot of people in my generation especially, there is a belief system around emotions and men feeling those emotions. And so I have had men come into my practice that they do some talk therapy, but when I can get them to do the breath work and allow them to release either the rage or the sadness or the hurt that they're feeling, you can release your emotion without having to talk about it. If you trust, you have to learn to trust your body though in order to do that. And I think that's the biggest piece of somatic breathwork that I think was so amazing for me, is the amount of emotional releases I could have without really having to say anything or have a narrative. And if you can get yourself out of a narrative and just let emotions be energy, then you can allow yourself to heal in a very deep way.
You know, I was thinking about men, and a lot of them have post-traumatic stress from, yeah.
But not even from physical or like war, things like that. PTSD can come from just the suppression, like not getting their emotional needs met from growing up, that you can get a form of trauma, what they're finding through the research. Gabor Mate is another guy who does a lot of research on this, is that as kids, by not getting our needs met, each person is different, but you can develop emotional trauma because your needs weren't getting met, and that can impact your life moving forward.
Amazing. You know, we need to get the word out because this seems like such a wonderful way to heal. And since most of us, I know when I was a little girl, I cried a lot, so but I might have suppressed other emotions, I don't know. But as a girl, nobody ever said anything to me. I was fine, you know. My parents didn't say, hey, quit crying, you know.
Well, I'll just share this last thing, is I held on to a lot of anger and a lot of pain when I was younger. My parents got divorced when I was a teenager, and that was very difficult for me. And, you know, my parents were going through their own stuff, and they were doing the best that they could, but I held on to a lot of anger from it and a lot of pain from it, and that built up on top of feeling very lonely when I was younger. And I carried that, and it affected my life, and so I was so angry at the world, but I had this belief that I'm not an angry person, right? Because I was in the helping field for so long. And what happened was I held on to that, but alcohol gave me the release to be able to release that stuff. And it wasn't until I started doing the work that I looked back and was like, wow. Like, I was holding on to so many emotions so tightly because I didn't want anyone to see the pain that I was actually going through in my life.
You know what, you've been through, I've mentioned this before, you've been through so much, but it's turned you into a wonderful therapist. Boy, if I had a problem, I'd come to you because you can relate to everybody. This is great. Thank you, Gina, so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is great. Thank you. Okay, so we'll end this now, and I'll say to the viewing audience, thanks for watching another edition of Parapsychology Today. If you want to make any suggestions, we're going to put up our email. Please email us and tell us what you think, and if you'd like to have somebody on, or if you have any questions, or if you like the show, please let us know. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.